Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Wherever you are watching us from, my name is Noura Al Masri. I am an enrolled agent, the CEO and founder of Noura's Books, tax and accounting firm. I help nonprofit organizations um, increase funding by efficient process and regulatory compliance. I also help business owners staying in compliance and increase their cash flow. And I have here today the amazing Cece, founder and CEO of Bookkeeper Bootcamp. She is the best in bookkeeping cleanup. Whenever we have a problem, we all call Cece. So welcome, Cece. Thank you so much for joining me today. Do you wanna
Thank
introduce
you. Thank you for having
more?
me. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, Nora, for having me. We've known each other for quite some time now. And I'm just honored to be here. And I thought, what a cool thing that Nora's doing. And I'm like, hey, Nora, I want to be on your show, or I want to go live. How can I hang out with you? And I think that we both, being in, the tax and finance industry, bookkeeping is kind of one of those underlining things that kind of bind us all together. And so, that's my expertise. So that's what I'm doing
Yeah.
here. And I've been teaching bookkeeping to people who don't know anything about bookkeeping, to, people who have their master's degrees, because I found that in, everything I've learned in college and everything in life, the one thing they don't teach you a lot about is bookkeeping. And I find that it's because there's so many different variables. So I kind of try to work that into my own teaching style. It's not a cookie cutter situation, and there's a lot of variables that you can't plan for. So when I created my course, I made it so that we could talk about those variables, and just work through them, have somewhat of a base, and learn how to grow with our software, especially with QuickBooks Online. So that's a little bit about me. And yeah, I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
terrible about talking about myself. I forget
Amazing.
stuff.
A lot of people don't know. They think they can handle bookkeeping on their own, and they don't realize, even as accountants, we in the finance who are having this as a full-time job, a way of living, we struggle, especially when bad bookkeeping has been started before, and then now the way you want to clean it up, and you think if someone who's already in charge of the books, that you can take that client and you can just move on. No,
Yeah.
sometimes we don't realize, and we have these situations a few times, like you don't realize that, okay, maybe the previous person who was in charge of the book did not really know how to do bookkeeping, because when you look at the balance sheets, it's a disaster.
Yeah, the balance sheet says otherwise. And I think it's a lot to do with the system and the software too. It's like what you want, what it's supposed to, what you're supposed to do, but
Mhm.
why isn't it happening? And a lot of it, I want to say it's like a 70-30 split. 70% bookkeeping skill, 30% software knowledge. Because how many times are we like, why did QuickBooks do that? I don't know. And I have I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll try to figure it out.
Yeah, a lot of duplications actually tend to be when people do their bookkeeping on their own. A lot of duplication, um, overestimate their income. I've seen a lot of loans recorded as income, so they have to pay taxes on now, and a lot of income like duplicated. One's invoice, one's every something else,
A
and
deposit thing. Yep.
yeah. So can you tell us, like, what is actually the most common mistake you have seen people do? Because I know, like, you coach a lot of us on cleaning up, and so you've seen your clients, and your clients, and our clients as well, when we need you on this. So you've seen a lot more than any of
I
us. So
have. No, I have. Definitely have. I don't want to be like I'm the cleanup expert, because I feel like everything's a little bit different. But I definitely have had the experiences of different industries and different crazy things that you would never even think of. Like some of it, I'm like, that's not even the route that I thought it was going to go. But one of the most common ones are what you were talking about, were duplications. And a lot of it has to do with understanding the workflow of utilizing the bank feed with QuickBooks, because QuickBooks Intuit has made it, I always say I have a love-hate relationship with them. I think that there should be more education to the business owner or the beginner user of QuickBooks on how to utilize the bank feed properly. I mean, I feel like people briefly know. They're like, oh, I see the bank feed. It's there, and just click, click, click. And they just click happy. They don't understand what the actions do, understanding the add, the match, the transfers. The transfers, that is one of the biggest, hardest things to clean up, is a transfer that wasn't supposed to happen and it got reconciled like in January of last year. And you're like, do I have to unreconcile everything? Sometimes the answer is yes, because you can't make that mistake. But sometimes it's no. But mostly common is the bank feed situation, where I will see somebody add a transaction from the bank feed, and they add it as a deposit, say $500, right? They see $500 on the bank feed for themselves or their clients, and they click it. And now it's automatically added. If they click add, now the transaction itself has been added to QuickBooks, right? To QuickBooks. It wasn't previously. So when you add that knowledge of knowing that now you're adding that transaction from the bank feed. So it's kind of like QuickBooks is helping you out in creating transactions automatically. But what they failed to do was match the payment that matched the invoice. So here's how it goes, right? It's like a chain link reaction. You create an invoice, you get the payment, you create a deposit, you see it in the bank feed, and then you match the deposits together, right? So you get the deposit, and your client goes in and actually makes the deposit, or it's done electronically. You see it on the bank feed, now you match it. What happens is people they make the invoice, they receive the payment. Sometimes they don't create the deposit, that's okay, but they see the payments come through, the 500 come through in the bank feed, and they just add it from here. They forgot to link it here. So now there's a missing link. So now you have a deposit, and now you have an AR balance open for 500, or an unapplied payments, not unapplied, undeposited funds. You have an undeposited funds open, or you just might have 2 duplicate transactions now. Either way it sits. It could be in undeposited funds. It could be in the same checking account, or it could be, usually I think it's those 2 spots, but you're going to have now these two $500 recognized as sales, because you've already received the payment, but you've received the payment again here. So now I have 2 receives. And that's what Nora's talking about. We're talking about duplicates. Duplicates happen like that all the time with deposits and with expenses, when people fail to match or fail to close an invoice. And closing off invoices are another big common mistake, where they just accept the deposit and they keep the invoice open. And now you have an AR invoice open for 500, but you have a deposit and it never linked. So that needs to be linked and taken care of. Those are the most common, but there's so many. Not one client is ever the same. They're all like little snowflakes. Mm-hmm. Everyone's different.
Yeah. And so guys, don't complain you're paying so much taxes and there's no money left behind, and you have all this duplication because you're saying, I made that much money, treble or double or whatever the process is. So make sure you have a proper bookkeeping, and if you don't know, get you some CC.
Get you a CC. It's true. I have to, I think one of the things I pride myself on is on the bookkeeper bootcamp, is trying to educate everyone that takes my bootcamp on that process, because it's such a common mistake. It's so commonly done that, even like I said, the best of us, right? The master's degrees, the CPAs, people who've been doing it for years, they just didn't realize that QuickBooks is making it so easy to do, when really they're creating a bigger problem. Mm-hmm. And And for those of you that use like the QuickBooks payment and, option where they can pay the invoice, like it can get so messy. And, YouTube can only help so much because not everybody is the same, right? It's not all the same business. It's not all the same industry. I think the biggest thing is just make sure you know what you're doing. If you're the business owner or you're the bookkeeper, you're the tax preparer, whatever, make sure you know the basics, plain and simple. It isn't easy. They are a lot of simple steps, but when you put a lot of simple steps together, right, bookkeeping can be this massive undertaking. It's very detailed. You touch every single transaction. So it can be very mundane and it can be very tedious. So I can see people like, not really enjoying it if that's not something that they like. But understanding it is super key. Otherwise, you do run into mistakes. And a lot of it is, like I say, that 30% is just knowing the software, because you could use it whichever one you want. But in the end, AP is AP, AR is AR, reconcile is reconcile. It's been that way forever. It's just a software that changes.
Yeah, and you have to have your knowledge of accounting and bookkeeping, how you want to do it, knowledge of the chart of account, because this is the basics. This is where you set everything. And if that is correct, makes the job much easier if you categorize correctly and do the match when it's supposed to be matched, transfer when it's supposed to be transferred, and add when it's supposed to be add. But you have to start there. And then, like you said, the software. And the software actually, like with QuickBooks, it's the most common. I mean, and like you said, we have love-hate relationship.
Right, like thank you, QuickBooks, but oh my gosh.
But they keep changing. They keep
Yes.
changing stuff and integrating with everything. And now if we are using like a CRM that integrates with QuickBooks and other software, that creates a larger problem also. And so you really spend time on this. And no, guys, it's not easy to do bookkeeping. It takes a lot of time. And if you get that to someone who knows what they're doing and they do care that to have a great book, they cannot really have minimal to work for you. They're not working for you. Expect an investment that worth it.
I agree. What you said it perfectly earlier, where you said, people are overpaying on their taxes. And I just read, I think it was something from Forbes, like 93% of small businesses are overpaying on their taxes. That's mostly because their bookkeeping is wrong. It's because you mentioned they're overstating on their income, or they have assets that aren't even assets, liabilities and equity accounts that aren't even real. The value of a bookkeeper is so important, so very important, because I know nowadays, people are like, well, they want to save money. I get it. We're bougie on a budget, and we want to save money where we can, but making sure that the person you're hiring as your bookkeeper knows what they're doing saves you more money in the long run, right? And that's almost just like if you guys are tax pros out there, it's like tax planning. When you plan ahead, or somebody that's doing it right, you spent the money, yes, you invested the money. So you invest the money in a good bookkeeper, you invest the money in a good tax preparer and tax planner, because the money that you invested, say it's $50,000. That is probably less than what you're going to be paying in sales tax liability because your books were wrong to begin. And then people are like, well, what's the point? People want to get loans. They want to buy houses. They want to say, oh yeah, I want to buy a house. My business is booming. And when the realtor or the banker asks for your P&Ls and your bank statements, guess what? They don't exist, or they're wrong. And now you're backpedaling and you're going, oh no, somebody help me, help me, help me. And then they're charging you $50K and you're like, but why? Because it's not easy. If it was easy, anyone could do it.
Yes.
Right. And we all know, we've seen those books where we're like, what were they doing? And then you've got a cleanup. So invest in a good bookkeeper, invest in a good tax preparer that's a good bookkeeper, because then you've got the whole package. They can do everything. Oh, I can't tell you, bookkeeping is like the love and bane of my existence.
Yes, it's so important because you cannot really do anything without bookkeeping. You cannot do your taxes right. You cannot do tax planning. You cannot do KPIs or anything. You cannot purchase
Right.
a house. You cannot get a loan for your business. You cannot build your business credits. Literally, you cannot do anything. You cannot manage your cash flow. So bookkeeping is really important. And
Yeah.
the, the, what do you call it? The base stone, the
Yeah, the foundation. The
foundation.
foundation. Yeah, that you were reading my mind. I was literally about to say that. The foundation. It's the foundation of your business. You
Yeah.
can't even make, good decisions on, or your client can't make good decisions if you don't even know what your cost of goods sold to what you're selling, like the actual product sale is. If you're not, you can't track that KPI. You
Mhm.
can't track your net profits. You There's so many things you can and cannot do
Yeah.
when you have bad bookkeeping. And yeah, some of the red flags, like when I go through, another common one is when I talk to people and they, like, I'm coaching, right? And this happens a lot. So to all my students out there, I'm not putting you guys on blast. It just happens a lot. But they come to me and they're like, oh, I'm doing this cleanup, or no, not this cleanup. They'll go like, okay, I have this client. They're going to start monthly with me. But like, I don't know where to start. And they didn't charge for a cleanup, or they didn't examine their books for a cleanup. That's the first misstep. So for those of you that are out there that are thinking about doing taxes or that are out there doing taxes and thinking about bringing on bookkeeping, I highly advise that you guys learn how to read the books first. And that's why, I say that there are red flags or instant red flags, right? And I think, Nora, is this a good time to share the
Yes, go
screen?
ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to share a screen with you guys that are
So,
able to watch live.
oh, sorry.
Oh, go
Just to
ahead.
let
Go ahead.
you can put your question in the comments, and we will get to those questions after. When is it a good time? When it is a good time. So just put your questions, and as Cece sharing her screen, like just learn, focus, and put your questions. Go ahead.
Yeah. Ask away. That's my favorite thing. Ask, 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 ask. It keeps me on my toes. Okay. So
There we
what I'm sharing with you guys is a bookkeeping client review checklist that I built here. And I built in the checklist along with two other tabs down here, a details tab and a pricing tab, right? Because this checklist helps determine the bottom line on what's going on with the book. So I think of it as an audit, like an internal audit before I take on my client. So I always, whenever I'm coaching people or whenever people are in my boot camp, they get this for free. If you don't want to join the bootcamp and you want it for free, I have a way for you guys to get this. So here in my like little checklist, I have a place for analyzing the banking section, analyzing the reconciliation, analyzing the balance sheets, analyzing the P&L, and then the accounts receivable. All of these, they're all little sections that all need to be analyzed. Now, the first couple times you do it, might be a little slow, and then you start to pick up and get the hang of it. So for me, it takes about 45 minutes to do. And I might not do this for everybody. I might do this, or for a whole year. I might do it for like just portions of the busy season, but I do this for everyone, for every client. And I recommend this because, like I was mentioning, I have people that are like, uh-oh, I can't do their books because these numbers don't match, CC. I'm like, that's because they haven't reconciled or cleaned their books for years. They actually need a cleanup before you can start. So after doing a client review checklist, if I notice that the client needs their books clean, I will recommend that based on this audit. So what I do is I fill all of this out, right? Let's start with the first. Well, let's explain. After I fill all of this out, anything that's a red flag, I will report it back to them on this checklist. And I've actually had some of my students charge their clients to have this checklist for themselves. But this checklist outlines all of the red flags and all of the problems that need to be addressed before they take on the monthly bookkeeping. Otherwise, if you do monthly bookkeeping for dirty books, your numbers aren't going to come out correctly when you run your balance sheet or profit and loss, right? So it's going to look like your numbers are wrong when in fact your numbers are probably right, but you have no way of telling because the books are so dirty to begin with. And that happens a lot. It's a huge mess, a huge mess. So what I did was I came in and I thought about all of the things that I really need to ask my client about or really need to identify. And so here I got like all the questions, right? So the first one is like, how many cash accounts do they have? Now, I typically don't ask this to them that in that way, but them being the clients, I usually tell my clients something along the lines of, so how many forms of payment? Because if I say cash, they think I don't have cash. I don't pay for cash for anything. I'm like, no. What I mean is, how many forms of payment do you have? If you got an invoice today, do you have like 2 credit cards you can pay with separately, 2 different banking cards, a saving? I want to know, do you have a PayPal that you use for paying for expenses? Like, what do you have? So that's how I ask them. And they're like, oh, I know. Okay, I got it. And then I'll write the details I need here. But I created this really cool little nifty, keep all of my information in one spot tab where I'll write it all down. So my first line, this blue line, I use it as an example. And this example is basically like, it tells you everything we're doing. And it goes hand in hand with this checklist. So as you're going through this checklist, and even when you guys are creating your own, say you don't use mine, that's fine. Create some kind of checklist for you to audit their books. You have to, not like you must. That should be something that you do all the time. So as you guys are going through, like this is my first one. This is my, just kidding. Okay, this is my very first line as my example, right? I put in all the data here, and this is based on the whole year. And these are the transactions for this account for each of these months. And then I've just averaged them out here. So in January, I've got 75 transactions, and I found that 75 transactions on the bank statement for this account. And if I have multiple accounts, I will list all of the accounts here. And then I'll do the same, and I'll go through and I'll get all of the transactions here, and I'll put in all the data, especially when it comes to the transactions. And then we're just going to kind of jump forward. But after I do that, then I price everything out. Because remember, we are working with transactions. So with transactions, with bookkeeping, you touch every transaction, regardless of how you're doing it. And what I try to do is minimize the amount of times that I'm touching a transaction, right? And what I mean by touching is you might be adding this transaction, say it's $50, either from the bank feed or you're entering it in manually. So if you enter it in manually and then you match it from the bank feed, you touched it twice. You're going to always touch it at least twice, because the last time you're going to touch it is when we add it to, or when we see it on the reconciliation screen or window. So now you've done 1, 2, and then 3 on the reconciliation window. If you're the type of bookkeeper that is recording it straight from the bank feed, $50 in the bank feed, you're just adding it, right? You're categorizing it, adding it straight from the bank feed. That's okay, perfectly fine. So you touch it once, then you're going to touch it again when you reconcile. I prefer to do it at least just twice and be done. Twice is the minimum amount of time. So when you think about somebody that has 300 transactions, we're dealing with that. We're dealing with each and every one of those transactions, right? Our job is to record and categorize every bookkeeping transaction, because that's our job as the bookkeepers. Otherwise, like, what are we here for? So I go through all of this, and I recommend people have a client review checklist, something similar, to make sure that you guys know what you're getting yourselves into. Because I mean, I can go on and on and on about this checklist, as Nora probably knows. I think she has a copy of one of mine, and I just updated the 2023 version to include cleanup pricing. And that's because you're not only going to charge the monthly rate that it comes out to, but for cleanup, you need to up your prices. And I found it better to teach people to charge a percentage. At this moment, I say 30% is a good percentage to add, so that once the cleanup is done, you can go back to the monthly charge. And the reason why you should be adding a markup, the reason why you should be, is because they're asking for a cleanup in record time. So you're doing a whole year. Say Nora's got to do a whole year. She's got to do a whole year before tax season is over. That is unbelievable amount of time. We are just jamming away, and so you guys need to be compensated for that. And I think that, as we all rise up together and we're like, no, pay the bookkeepers the right amount, clients are going to start to understand that they can't get away with paying somebody $8 an hour. They can, might not be the best, and we'll talk to them later when they need a cleanup,
Exactly. They will end up in our doorstep because, like, you cannot price shop for these type of things. You have to know
right.
who's gonna do the good job, because bookkeeping is not just like add, match.
Yeah,
It's not. A lot of people who really don't have any idea about bookkeeping or accounting, they don't know anything about reconciliation. They think if they connected their bank to their software, they have their expenses and income, and that's an accounting. That's a bookkeeping.
Right. That's bookkeeping. They're like, and we're done. Some people are like, wait, I had to do a reconcile. What's that? Why do we need to do that? I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to. It's to make sure that there are no duplicates. And it's like it all snowballs. So having the understanding, even at the basic knowledge of knowing how and why we use a software to determine all of this, and I have a friend of mine who created created like kind of her own Excel sheet to provide a balance sheet and P&L for people that don't need QuickBooks or don't want QuickBooks, but they have 100 transactions or less for the year. So she's like, okay, I'll just make one. But it's so, we've got to buy those things still, and it's our time. And oh man, QuickBooks loves to try and guess and help and auto this and auto add, and it can get really messy because it's just an AI program, helping you guess. It doesn't mean it's correct. Not at all.
Exactly. So tell me about these people who use rules and that rules categorize your stuff like all to one place.
I know, like I get why you want to do the rule. I think the only time I ever used a rule was because we were doing, our client would use Google AdWords, and it was $500 every single time. So I was like, screw it. You know what? We already know that that's a thing. Auto add that rule. Like that'll never change.
Yes.
Those little tedious ones I get. I do have my own style that I like to do. And Nora knows I'm not a big fan of utilizing the bank feed if I don't need it. And a lot of times I don't. I will use it for certain things like on the AR side, closing out an invoice, the proper workflow way, because that's what QuickBooks likes. QuickBooks likes their workflow. They don't like you to touch it. And if you do, it's like a whole hot mess. But yeah, you just gotta be careful with those auto ads and those auto rules. And especially when you're integrating like a software, like let's say Square or Stripe, integrations like that can change your chart of accounts. So you, the bookkeeper, and maybe even the client need to be aware of what kind of changes occur. That is probably one of the bigger problems I usually have to tackle, is when they have integrations. Am I a fan of integrations? No. Don't integrate. Keep it separate. Do the work, keep it separate. You will sleep easier at night. I promise you.
That's what I tell my clients who wants to have their donations details, like with their donor name. Like, no, this is not the place to do it. Just have your donor management system, and we just match the numbers. That's what we have to do. But you don't need to put each donor there. It's gonna be a mess. You're gonna a disaster in your books. Some cards, even I don't like to have it in a bank feed, because it's so complicated. They have especially corporate accounts and then individual accounts where in fact it's only one. I was like, come on.
Yeah, it's so hard, especially with the nonprofits. I think like Nora literally just hit the nail on the head with the nonprofits. You might be recording something separately. Like, don't double record. Don't do double the work. If you've got your donor information in another software, keep their donor information in the other software. And it's just depositing into the bank, and QuickBooks is just recording that deposit. You don't have to put your donor information in QuickBooks as well. It's all right. Like, you don't have to create an invoice and then go through the process. Just keep all of that in the sales in the other one.
Mm-hmm.
It just keep it there, because we can always pull it there. QuickBooks doesn't need it, doesn't need their info, but QuickBooks does need to track how the money is being donated, or
Mm-hmm.
how a grant is being brought in. We just need to categorize it. We can do that in a journal entry and properly say we get like a $50,000 grant. We bring it in a journal entry format and easily just document that we got, we can create a chart of accounts that's specific to that grant, and then show it being deposited to the bank. And then that way, we do it that way. Or when you have a big $50,000 deposit, that's multiple $10,000, 5 donors that donated at $10,000. You've got all of those 5 donors here. You don't have to break them up here.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to. You can easily just, again, do a journal entry, put the 50K, put their names, or put individual 10K. You can put their names and then put it in one transaction. I am all about the journal entry. All about the journal entry. It just makes your life so much easier, especially when you're dealing with high volumes of donors or different styles of donors. You don't have to record it twice. Don't make your bookkeeper do that. If you are that nonprofit, it's not worth it. You're going to be paying your bookkeeper a lot more if you have them double recording, which is like, again, it's not the end of the world if that's what the nonprofit wants. If the nonprofit wants that, then, and you're spending more time doing that, then you should charge accordingly.
Yeah, that's what I tell them. Okay, do you want to pay for that? We can definitely do that, but it's gonna cost you much more. And also when they say, okay, we're gonna like send you a paper statement. Okay, do you want to pay for extra money? Because that's gonna cost us more money to have it uploaded to the system. One time I had to actually hire someone to do 6 hours of scanning just to have like 2 years of bank statements and other documents. I have to pay for that. That means my client has to pay for that. Or I'm not going to spend my time actually scanning because we are a paperless
right.
firm.
It's not fair.
Like cabinets of
right.
documents, right? And we have to keep those. So yeah, like people have to understand that you either have to do like what's save us and due time, it's if it's not necessary, or we promise like we're gonna keep you in compliance. We're not gonna do something that is not legal. But also for speaking of nonprofits, you need donor management system in order to grow anyway. So you should have that.
You should have that. And there's that saying, right? Like you tell your client they can have a combination of either fast, cheap, or easy.
Mm-hmm.
And they can only have 2 of those. If they want it fast and cheap, it's not going to be easy. If they want it easy and fast, it's not going to be cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that. Like you can't have it always. And one big thing is like I try to tell people to be humble about this one part, but like the client doesn't know everything. You are the tax pro, you are the bookkeeper. You should make sure that you stand true to your ethics.
Mm-hmm.
If at the end of the day you feel uncomfortable, that's okay. And that goes for the client too. If the client doesn't want to go with that bookkeeper because they feel uncomfortable, that's okay. Bless them and release. Bye.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like we're all like have this our own decision. What do we think we need to, but just make sure, like, just know that bookkeeping is not a luxury. It's not when you feel like I can afford it. You have to do it from the beginning because it's a compliance work, because you cannot do good taxes without it, because you cannot grow without it. And it is really important for your growth, for everything. So it's not something you feel like to doing. Like if you don't market your business, no one will know that you exist. Bookkeeping, it doesn't have that effect, but it shows it affects everything else.
Right, exactly. It affects everything else. And even, before we close out and before I forget, because I know me, I'll forget, for anyone watching, I don't know if they'll watch this on a recording or anything else. Here's one big one of the topics we're talking about is like your red flags, right? How to know whether or not your bookkeeping needs cleanup. So one thing I'll leave you guys with, like big diamond in the rough. It's when the ending bank statement of, say, let's just pull a year, December 2020, 2022, this last December, last month. Sorry, in my head, I'm in February. Sheesh. So in December, you pull the December statement, and the statement date is from December 1st to December 31st. If it was the 30th, the 30th. But let's say for this example, December 1st to the 31st. Say the bank statement says, and it's for the checking account, the bank statement says it's for $50,000. Okay, that's the ending balance. If you run your balance sheet for the same date range, and you look at on the balance sheet in the top portion, the first few lines, you should see your checking account listed there. If you look over and that number doesn't say $50,000, you need to clean up. There you go. So if you guys are watching, or you guys are like, how do I know? That is the biggest red flag. When the balances do not match. They have to match, or I think one of the only reasons that I always allow the balances not to match is if your client pays for something at the end of the month or issues checks at the end of the month and they just didn't clear until the following month. Because that is one of the reasons why you'll have, as long as that's an explanation, that's obviously a legitimate explanation. The machines can't do it overnight. It takes a day, and it was the 31st, it was processed on the 31st, but it didn't hit the bank till the 1st. That's okay. We're not going to change this QuickBooks dollar amount because we paid on the 31st. They just didn't receive it to the 1st because their machine didn't process it. Totally fine. So if you have a bunch of those transactions that just didn't clear, that should be the difference. So if it's a $10,000 check that got issued from your client to one of their vendors, you should be off, say at the end of the month, and they don't cash it till January, you should be off by that dollar amount of that check or of that payment, whatever it is. That's the only explanation as to why that's the only good explanation as to why your balance should be off.
And if your balance sheet is wrong, that will affect your taxes, and you're gonna have probably a huge tax bill. Or if you get audited, they will find out like what's wrong, and they will ask you what's wrong.
They're going to do a bookkeeping cleanup themselves. They're going to do an audit. They're going to be like this. And I can tell you this, if your balance sheet is wrong, your P&L is wrong. Period. It's wrong, because that's the caveat, is that the balance sheet is a perpetual account. It's a balance, a roll forward, right? It's always going forward. As to your P&L, that's a temporary report. That's whatever you made last month, is it going to carry over to this month? It's going to start again. So you can see, you could run double months and you could see what falls in that date. But it's not like the balance sheet where it rolls forward. And just because you made $50,000 last month, it doesn't start you at $50,000 in February. It starts you at zero. So that's why we say that one's a temporary report.
Great. Thank you. So for
You're welcome.
Watching now or watching in the replay, I put our links in the banner. So this is the link tree for CC and myself. So you can book a call or contact us based on the information. And we'll be happy to help you. And CC has boot camps. Like, can you tell them about upcoming events, like your boot camp, anything that you have coming up?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for reminding me, because I totally would have forgot. For those people that need some kind of training on boot camp, I have put together all of my classes that I've ever taught, and I created just one big mega boot camp now. And it's the Bookkeeper Bootcamp 2.0s. I call it just my 2.0 webinar series. And my next one is February 11th and 12th and 18th and 19th. It's 4 days, but on the weekends only. So it's basically 2 weekends in a row. And this allows for a lot of training for that week in between. And for those of you, you guys have day jobs, I get it. So we meet on the weekends, and it's about 2.5 hours each day, give or take how long the Q&As are. They are live and they're hands-on. So like, you'll get training. You're going to see me utilize the training and then put it into actuation in QuickBooks, so you can see and ask questions. Yeah, that one's happening in February. I'm going through one right now. This weekend is the last days, or the last 4 days, and we go over the basics, right? Because me and Nora talked about the basics. We go over bookkeeping cleanup, because everyone should know about bookkeeping cleanup, or at least know how to identify bookkeeping cleanup when they need it. You guys will learn about sales tax, payroll, and job costing in QuickBooks, how to utilize that. What's the other one? Marketing and sales. That's part of I call it my fun day. But honestly, all of it's just jam-packed full of knowledge. And then you get 20 days of one-on-one training with me. So one-on-one coaching, and the one-on-one coaching, that's just time that we can have together to create a path for your goals individually. And that just works. I mean, there's so much to it. That one-on-one is one of my favorite things to do, because then I get to know people and know that, they can share personal and client information. But it's not a 20-day. I want to explain this, not 20 days consecutively. It's 20 days as you need them. So I always say, like a punch card style, use them as you go. And those days never expire. And they're about an hour and 15 minutes a day. I don't know. If you guys click on my link, I can keep on going about it, but click on my link. You guys can always schedule a free 20-minute coaching call with me, where I can explain it more to details, where you guys can ask questions. Or if you just need coaching and you're like, look, I'm going to take advantage of the actual coaching. Maybe in 20 minutes, Cece can help me. I've done it in 20 minutes. Let me tell you, I've gotten people far enough in 20 minutes where I'm like, look, we're going to go that far. But that's the boot camp that's coming up. I do have one-on-one mentorships in increments of 30 days and 7 days. And then I do have my new group coaching situation. And that's fun. I'm just starting it this year. And that is a little more affordable for like an affordable option for people to join my online community on Discord. And yeah, if you need more information, click the link on on the link tree for Bookkeeper Bootcamp. All of the information's there. I am traveling to the Philippines in March to do my very first international bootcamp. Oh. And I'm really excited about that one. Really, really excited, because I do know a lot of people that are offering bookkeeping in the Philippines. Mm-hmm. And again, I am all about teaching people how to do it correctly. Because if you want to get the money, you want to get paid. Hey, even if you guys, the tax pros, need to hire a good bookkeeper, and you guys are hiring overseas. I know a lot of people are getting a lot of help in the Philippines. I want them to know how to do bookkeeping too. Otherwise, what are you doing, right? Like, you're going to hire a bookkeeper to help you. We need that bookkeeper to know what they're doing.
We need that, actually. We struggle with these. A lot of people, they say, oh, okay, we're going to do it. But can you do it CC style, please?
Right.
Send us a lot of people like to help.
Yeah. For real. It's crazy. It's always, I felt like once COVID hit, because I knew things were going to go virtually, but once COVID hit, it just boomed. Everyone started working from home. People started working from overseas, and the virtual scene has just blown up. So managing that, understanding your skill, and understanding if you want that skill. Like, I know I've filed taxes before. I prepared taxes. Do I want to do them? No. I'll call Nora. I'll call my tax pro friends. I'll be like, no. I have a friend that does taxes, especially in the nonprofit field. Nora's my only nonprofit friend. So kudos. I send everybody her way.
Yeah. Thank you, Cici. That's great. So tell me, can you tell everyone actually, who's your bootcamp and all of these coaching for? Is it only for bookkeepers, or who is it for?
Oh, it's for everybody. It's for everybody.
If I work with a company or any company, organization, or if I'm an owner and I want someone in-house, can I send them to be trained by you?
You can. Absolutely. The bootcamp is perfect for that. When you have someone that you already have hired that you need them to have some kind of a refresher, some kind of basic understanding, more foundation, so to speak, of bookkeeping, definitely send them to me. I teach people who don't even know anything. They came from, I don't know, the retail industry, and they're just tired of being in retail. They're tired working, say, at just the local markets down the street. And they're like, I've heard about bookkeeping. I want to learn. I'm like, okay, great. So even if, I've helped people who are owners that want their bookkeeping, it's tax season. So they get with me so I can help them clean up their books. That, they don't have to be bookkeepers. Anybody that needs help with bookkeeping, I help. There are different programs for different people and for their different needs. And I feel like either it's a one-on-one coaching, the boot camp, or, even just the group coaching. So it's just a little bit of things for everybody. The owners, the bookkeepers, the tax pros, a little bit for everybody.
Nice. Awesome. And believe me, guys, you will need it even if you're not going to do it on your own because you need to understand if it's done right or wrong. That's the minimum you have to do as a business owner. If you're running a nonprofit, if you are a bookkeeper, if you're a tax pro and just want to do bookkeeping at that, on the side, or hire someone who does it also, like anything that you offer through your company, or maybe not offer, business owner, period, you need to know if your bookkeeping is done right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So you really need to know that, even if I recommend that you don't do it on your own, because you're not going to have time because you're running your business, growing
Yes.
business, but at least you want to know who are you hiring. So you need to understand this. So connect with Cece. She's the best on that.
I try to be. I try to sharpen my skills whenever I get a chance. And helping people really has helped me just sharpen even further, because it's the more like exposure I have to all these other problems where I'm like, what just happened here? And I love problem solving. Like, okay, this is this, this is that. We need to move this over here. Now create, the cleanup bank account. Oh, it's so much fun. It's so much fun.
Yes, and you're the best. Come on, you're the best. And the people don't know sometimes. Okay, we think in our just human brain that don't know accounting. Sometimes we think, okay, we can just do this and that will fix. And like Cece will tell you, no, yes, I wish it was this simple. You cannot do it this way. So
Yeah.
don't think that you can fix it alone. You cannot if you don't know.
If you don't know, you can't do it. Just like I might think fixing a light switch is easy. It sounds easy,
Uh-huh.
probably not as easy as I think, because I'm not the expert in that, And for those people that are out there that are business owners, I don't know how to do what you do. For you, it's easy. For me, I'm like, oh God, I don't know. I don't know how to do that. I could mess it all up. That's bookkeeping. We
Yeah.
know bookkeeping, and it's so easy to mess up. So easy.
And you
Very
cannot
easy to mess
delete
up.
things to fix, right?
No, stay away from the delete button. Stay away unless you're 1000% sure you're supposed to delete it. Do not delete.
Uh-huh.
That's another gem. Don't delete unless you're 1000% sure that is the right one to delete. Otherwise, you'll find yourself in a whole heap of mess. A whole heap.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that QuickBooks Pro, they try, their customer service, they really do try to help you guys out. They should hire me. I tell them, don't give out that advice. Sometimes it's just bad advice. That's all. And I chalk it up to, they're dealing with a lot of people. So it's not totally their fault. But sometimes I think that, and this is from my own experience, that I've gotten bad advice myself coming from QuickBooks Pro advisors when I call them, like call into it. Not the bookkeepers that have the certification, but when I call in for help, sometimes they just don't, they just don't understand what's happening. They don't understand the industry. And that is important, is that they might not understand how nonprofits work. Mm-hmm. So they might be giving you the bad information. I don't know. You never know it's important to reach out to the right industry people, or people that know about your industry. That's important.
So one last thing, like I want to mention, Cece, before we go, since we said a lot of things about negativity about about QuickBooks, like, do you recommend people use other stuff? I see a lot of people using Wave and other stuff they think is easier. So yeah, I would love to hear your point of view on
Oh boy. Okay. So again, it's a love-hate situation. QuickBooks, Intuit, don't come for me. Okay. You know what's up. All right. Somebody told me like, oh, Cece, you should speak at the QuickBooks Expo. I was like, no, they don't want me there. They don't want me there. Maybe I will. I don't know, one of these days. But like, I get QuickBooks isn't bad. If you're going to do QuickBooks, understand QuickBooks. But I did like Xero for a long time. I just stopped using Xero because a lot of people and a lot of businesses turn to QuickBooks. And to be honest, QuickBooks has monopolized the system. So like anytime somebody thinks of bookkeeping, they think QuickBooks, right?
Mhm.
So like kudos to them and their marketing and their acquisitions. They are the ones.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite softwares is NetSuite Oracle. Or Oracle, NetSuite by Oracle. It is a lot more pricier, and I recommend this software for companies that are big on the operation side, like big sales, people that are job costing. So construction, really any big job costing kind of clients. NetSuite was one of my favorites. Like it's probably my favorite one. Yeah, I really enjoy NetSuite, but QuickBooks, they are good for what they do. I have used Wave apps before, and it's good if you want a free, but you get what you pay for. You're not paying for anything, so it's not going to give you the option to create certain reports or find certain KPIs that you need. So you get what you get, and I think that you can purchase things as you go. So yeah, it's give and take. If you're going to start, just start with QuickBooks. Just know what you're doing. That is my recommendation. But if you are working with a client or you yourself or a big nonprofit, look at NetSuite Oracle. I really like the work that they do, and I love the personalization and customer service that they provide. I love that you can personalize and customize your interface. Like I can't call QuickBooks and be like, "Can you add this button here?" You could do that with NetSuite.
Yeah.
They have the power to create that.
It's just a larger investment. So if you are in that boat, you can do that. But you can start with QuickBook, as Cece said. And then when you are at that point, definitely NetSuite.
Yes. There's pros and cons to everything. The best software is going to be very pricey. Do you need it? It's up to you and your budgets. And you guys are the business owners. You know what's up. Again, it's a choice, and I just say look into what you're going to invest in. Weigh the pros and cons.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Cece.
You're welcome.
Here for all the great information you provided. And you guys, if you're watching us in any platform, like please put your comment. We'll make sure to go answer it, send it to Cece. Linktree for Cece here, Linktree for myself is here, and we're gonna put the contact information on YouTube, everywhere.
Yeah, you guys can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all under the handle Bookkeeper Bootcamp. So find me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And any last
words? Any last words of encouragement? Let's see. I would say last words of encouragement is one of my favorite affirmations that I like saying this year is I release my doubt. And what was it? Oh gosh, I can't believe I just said this is one of my favorites. And I like to tell you, so it's I release my doubt and insecurities. And I like to say this especially for us as entrepreneurs, those that are either bookkeepers or on the other end that own the nonprofits. Like my doubts and my insecurities might be in marketing, it might be in sales, but going forward and not working in fear, and not saying that, I'm fearless, I'm just going to do my books. No, I'm not going to work in fear where, I'm going to go ahead and trust the professional. If I'm going to hire somebody to do their job, I'm going to trust that it's best that it's in their hands. And I don't want you guys to have doubts. So, to quell those doubts, make sure that you are, following it up with things that will help. What's the word? I just forgot it. Help, secure those insecurities or reconfirm those doubts. And, you just might need extra support this year. And this year it's all about the support. So releasing the self-doubt, releasing the insecurities, getting the support helps with that. so that now you don't have to worry so much. When people hire a tax pro, they literally are trusting in them. So same thing. And when they're hiring you as a business, they're trusting in you. So that can be applied to professional life, personal life. That's a good affirmation to take into 2023.
Well, thank you, Cece. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for being here. And tax season officially started yesterday. So even if you don't still have, if you don't still, well, if you still don't have all your documents, start talking to your professional. If you don't have anyone to help you, reach out to me and my team. We can definitely help you and we can start onboarding you, and you can upload your documents as they come, so we can help you and guide you on what you need, you the best return. And if you are in nonprofit world, join my free masterclass. It's happening actually. The next one is coming on February 15 at 4 p.m. Central.
Nice.
That's gonna be Wednesday. It usually takes about 2 hours. We're answering questions. I'm going to teach you the strategies on how to start and grow your nonprofit. It works for you, for your staff, anyone who's involved in nonprofit. And I'll hope to see you there. It's free. You can just find the link on the link tree, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much, Cece.
Bye, guys. Happy tax season.